Hello, good day. Welcome to this Microsoft training on how to manage your secure score in Microsoft 365. My name is Alex. At the moment, I am based in the Netherlands. However, I understand that this is an event organized by Microsoft Norway. Good one, I think. That would be that is as far as my Norwegian goes, as well as Dun and Lucas. And that is the only two words. I spend a lot of time in Norway. So what you are up to today is a presentation that is going to last for about 3 hours. And somewhere halfway, we are going to take a small break so you can get some coffee and some fruits or anything you like to eat. And that is basically the session for now. So we will be looking into the Microsoft Secure Score. I do not have many PowerPoint slides. Actually, this is the only one, so let's just get rid of that immediately. The way that I present is that I do a lot of demonstrations, as well as I'm using a nice whiteboarding tool to explain whatever I have to explain. So what we will be looking into today is how we can manage our secure score in Microsoft 365. If we'll be zooming in that, then if you go into one of the Microsoft portals, which is security.microsoft.com, this is the home of Microsoft 365 Defender. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Here we go. So this is the home of Microsoft 365 Defender. And what you'll see here on the left-hand side is a function which is called the Microsoft Secure Score. Now, many organizations, they use this as a guidance for getting to a better level of security. So one of the things that we are going to go through, that's what we will be starting with, is understanding the secure score. And well, not so much the score itself. For example, the value of 69% is something we will probably understand that there is 31% left to improve. But what I think is important is that we get to understand how this secure score is being generated for us. If you understand how it's generated, you can also make better decisions on how to get it improved. So what I want to start with is understanding the secure score. And to understand the secure score in Microsoft 365, we're going to start by making sure that we have created a tenant in Azure. Now, if you are looking for working with Microsoft Azure, then you will probably know that the tenant in Azure is what we call a security boundary. Everything within a tenant trusts each other. That doesn't mean that all users are allowed to do everything, but the trust relation between different objects is there, and that is because there is this one major component that we use for this, and that component is Azure Active Directory. The Azure Active Directory, if you are wondering about that, maybe you have been attending yesterday's session on Azure Active Directory. We did a 5-hour introduction. If you haven't seen that session yesterday, then you may want to go and check out the recording. It has been recorded and you can watch it on demand. So that would be the introduction here. For now, we are going to assume that Azure AD is known to us. Within an Azure tenant, what we can do is we can create 2 types of areas. Now, you may know that if you are a customer of Azure, you have access to infrastructure as a service components, platform as a service component, as well as software as a service components. To simplify things, you could go in and say, hey, infrastructure as a service is where we work with virtual machines and virtual networking. Platform as a service is allowing us to run applications, databases, data services, and other components. And in the software service area, we will find stuff as everything related to Microsoft 365 and Dynamics 365. That is pretty much, this is a good summarization of what you can get. And you can get all of that within one single tenant. And the way that this is organized within one single tenant in Azure, Microsoft allows you to create 2 types of subscriptions. One subscription type is the subscription type called Azure Resource Manager. You may have been working with this if you, for example, have created virtual machines in Azure, or when you've created databases in Azure. This is where the infrastructure and the developers go. And then there is the subscription type of Azure Active Directory, and that is shortened to AAD. Now, this subscription type is all about software as a service, where the Azure Resource Manager subscription is all about infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. Actually, when we think of it, in both sides, there is a secure score, right? So you can also implement secure scores for your infrastructure and platform as a service. Now, if you will be looking into what you can get inside the subscription, then in the Azure Active Directory subscription, you will find all kinds of Microsoft-based cloud applications. For example, you will see everything related to Office 365, and in that case, you can think about different products like Exchange Online or SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, Teams, many more of those, like Yammer and Stream and Forms and List and Shift, and there's so many applications. Also, a part of Microsoft 365 is Enterprise Mobility and Security. In Enterprise Mobility and Security, you will find solutions like Tune for mobile device management, for example. You'll find Microsoft Purview for compliance management and information protection, and some other mobility and security related components. Also, there's a Windows component. For example, you may have heard of something called Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365, and some others. So if you would be, also Dynamics would be here. So if you check out what the Azure Active Directory subscription is about in Microsoft 365 or in your Azure tenant, then it's about those software as a service components. And Microsoft, out of the box, they run an incredible amount of diagnostics here. So for all those products, Microsoft writes down event-based information, performance-based information, auditing information for security. All of those products are being monitored out of the box. The thing is, we need to store them somewhere. And Microsoft stores the diagnostic information into something that is called a log analytics workspace. A log analytics workspace is a location which is based on a technology called the Azure Data Explorer. Now, the Azure Data Explorer is a component that is specialized in storing data way that it is optimized for analytics, for analyzing the data, maybe using machine learning algorithms, using AI, and that is what that Data Explorer is about. So what happens is that for all of those products, or for all of those products that we monitor, we can send information into that Data Explorer. And then when we have this data stored, then one of the ways to investigate what is going on in that data is, for example, by querying this data. There's actually a special language for querying that data. It's a KQL, and that is short for the Cousteau query language. The KQL or Cousteau in Cousteau query language is actually named after Jacques Cousteau, the French explorer of the seas. Now, the Cousteau query language is something that you can master yourself at one point. You can, if you teach yourself, if you take a course on it, you can understand that Cousteau query language, which is by itself, I think, a very nice skill to have if you need to investigate security. However, you don't really need to understand that Cousteau query language in order to understand what would be a smart step to take in order to get to a better level of understanding and to get to a better level of security in your Azure tenant. Oh, let me quickly finish my coffee before it gets cold. So if we run solutions in Microsoft 365 and the diagnostic information, Microsoft decides what diagnostic information that would be. That is Microsoft Defender for Identity, which helps to protect your Azure Active Directory and Active Directory domain services that you may be running. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Applications allows you to monitor and manage applications that have access via the HTTP protocol. For example, Exchange Online is a cloud application, or SharePoint Online is a cloud application, but also third-party applications like Amazon Cloud, or third-party apps like Sessionize or Salesforce, LinkedIn, or Cloud App has information about over 1,000 different applications. And that is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, which helps you to protect your devices like phones, tablets, computers, so on, servers as well. Now, you see that Zoom has. So what you see is that those products, those solutions, they base their information on data that has been gathered by the diagnostics in the Microsoft 365 environment. So this data come from. And what's really cool is that most of the products, they also by itself capable of GPE modeling, and also those products are going to push even more all the data being gathered. So for example, Microsoft Defender Endpoint you can install on a Windows server. That Windows server can generate information, diagnose that, it's going to be sent in Microsoft Defender Endpoint, and Microsoft Defender Endpoint will then send data into the log analytics workspace for us to list them, for example, like that information, and we'll start using it. Right? So that is a little bit on how those applications are generating information, are also using information that is also stored centrally in Azure environment. Now, the Microsoft Secure Score is based on all the data that Log Analytics Workspace has if it's related to security. So, for example, by implementing Microsoft Defender for Office Endpoint, you are going to enrich your data set that is also beneficial for the Microsoft. I guess that makes sense. I got a question from Anonymous. I guess I don't get to see your names. Don't worry about that. I got a question that says, is Log Analytics Workspace set up automatically, or do you need to set it up yourself? This Log Analytics Workspace here is set up automatically. It's actually part of your Microsoft 365 licenses. The reason that, for example, E5 is more expensive than, for example, E3 is that Microsoft 365 E5 contains a lot of extra security and compliance related components that use the Log Analytics Workspace. And the reason that a Log Analytics Workspace is, let's say not very cheap, is that Log Analytics Workspace is making use of machine learning and AI capabilities, which obviously will cost a lot of compute power. Right, so therefore, it has to be paid for. So Microsoft 365 E5 is more expensive than E3, mostly because of the extra features. But those extra features, they use machine learning and AI, which is the pricey part there. This Log Analytics Workspace is set up automatically. You don't have to do anything. Microsoft creates this out of the box. Now, just for the purpose of being complete in our story, just for the purpose of understanding it all, in the other subscription type, for example, the Azure Resource Manager subscription type, what you get here in Azure is that you could go and create situations where a virtual machine would be connected to a virtual network. So we would have a virtual network here with a little router. This would be a VNet. Maybe that virtual machine also requires access to a database. So maybe you are hosting some kind of a database service here, which is also accessible from that virtual network. Here, well, here the subscription is different, and therefore, if you want to get the same kind of situation, if you want to also make use of a login workspace, then in this subscription type, you will have to go and create this yourself, because well, this is not for free. It's also not part of anything. And create these yourself. The main reason is that the differences are that a subscription like this, an Azure Resource Manager subscription, it's a subscription here. Here we typically use a pay-as-you-go model, so you only pay for what you use. Here we have a subscription that is sort of used in a flat fee. You pay per user per month for what the user has access to. So if you have, for example, it doesn't matter to Microsoft if you do a lot of Teams meeting or just a few, or it doesn't matter if you send or receive a lot of emails or just a few per month, you are going to pay exactly the same amount here, right? And that makes sense because it's a flat fee model. Therefore, we are not going to pay for extra log analytics workspace here in the log analytics workspace in the Azure Resource Manager model, there where Microsoft allows you to do IaaS and PaaS. That is where you would still have to go and pay for that environment. And also, it is completely up to you what kind of resources are going to be configured to send their diagnostic information into that log analytics workspace. For example, you could decide that maybe virtual machines that you just use for testing or for developing software, you may not be super interested in how these machines are secured or how they are performing or what kind of events are happening on those machines. Therefore, you could skip those because, well, the less you do on this side, the less you're going to pay in the end of the month. So it actually makes sense to, well, be very careful here. Now, also, what you could do is create your own log analytics workspace in that other type of subscription. The architecture is pretty much the same. You will have also an Azure Data Explorer based solution here that allows you to implement, that allows you to go and query the content based on a custom query language. Just the same thing. Also here, you will be you have capabilities for machine learning and AI. However, the difference here is that you are going to pay for this for every gigabyte that you ingest. And then also there is some default data retention time. So that is how you would pay. This log analytics workspace is paid for as part of the Microsoft 365 licenses. So that is it's a different situation, but the technology behind this is pretty much the same thing. And then also on the Azure Resource Manager side, you will notice that there is solutions that we can implement in order to make use or to visualize and act on the data. So for example, here we have different types of solutions. For example, there's something called Azure Monitor here, which is just about performance monitoring and event monitoring. It's sort of a combination of in Windows Event Viewer and the Windows performance monitoring. Based on this, you can also be set up alerts and you could be notified and so on. Then there is also another component in Azure that you could implement, and that is called Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Microsoft Defender for Cloud allows you to do all kinds of threat management, for example, for servers or for containers, or there is Defender for Cloud for example, DNS, or there is Defender for Cloud for SQL databases, or there is Defender for Cloud for Cosmos databases, which is just another database type, Defender for Cloud for IoT, for example, all kinds of different implementations. And also here, as part of Defender for Cloud, you will actually have a couple of scores as well. For example, you can have a secure score and a compliance score based on Defender for Cloud. So that could also be seen as useful information for protecting our Azure-related datasets better. And Microsoft has something extra here, which is super nice, and that is called Microsoft Sentinel. And Microsoft Sentinel is what we see as a SIEM and a SOAR and an XDR solution. SIEM is short for Security Incident and Event Management, which is sort of used for a security operations center. SOAR is the security orchestration, automation, and response, and XDR is about extended detection and response. Now, just like in the Azure Active Directory subscription, what we see is that these solutions are going to make use of the data that is being sent into the diagnostic into the log analytics workspace. However, another thing that we could do here, and that is actually quite nice, is that we can also take solutions like these, and those solutions by themselves could also generate extra diagnostics, and for that they could go in and create extra data into that log analytics workspace. So this is sort of, if you look into this as the architecture of security and monitoring in Azure, then this is what you have. However, this is not all. There is some things that we could add into this, which might make the solution even more interesting for us. For example, what if you are running some solutions in an on-premise environment? So, for example, you are running maybe some virtual machines in your own, or some computers in your own on-premises network, and maybe you want to get some information out of those. And then what we can also see, for example, is maybe we have on-premise an Active Directory domain service active, which would mean a domain controller and a database for users to sign in like this. Maybe this on-premise environment needs access to the internet by, for example, a firewall that you have been implemented, or a proxy, right? And maybe that is allowing users to connect to the internet. Now, the internet is basically this is the most difficult part of my drawing. Here we go. Now, I am pretty proud of myself on this internet. However, a few months ago, I was teaching a class in Paris, and one of the students said, it's a croissant, which makes no sense. Anyway, I think it looks like cloud. Well, in France, they would think this is a croissant. It's also, very fluffy. That's good. Even if you are running solutions on-prem, a firewall, for example, or in the cloud, and in the cloud you could be running solutions, for example, maybe you are running services on AWS. Maybe you are running solutions in the Google Cloud. Or maybe you are making use of other third-party cloud applications like Salesforce or ServiceNow, which is a couple of these basic examples that Microsoft always use, or you may have some other cloud-based applications. Then one of the things that you can do, depending on your Microsoft Defender solution, what you could do is that you can add extra diagnostic information into your log analytics workspace because of those Defender applications. For example, and I'm not going to draw all the lines, but for example, each individual virtual machine could be sending security-based information into Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, or for Defender for Identity, you can even have third-party integrations with, for example, I want to make this a little better. So, for example, I could have I may have a firewall here, and I want this to be sticking. Yes, I have a firewall that could be sending proxy-based information into Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, and also Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps is able to receive information from third-party cloud-based solutions. Now, if I just got a question in, the question says, are you using the same log analytics workspace for the two models you have here? Well, these are two of the same log analytics workspaces. However, let's say physically, these are two different log analytics workspaces. This means that you cannot just go and say, hey, I'm going to send these diagnostics for my virtual machines in Azure into that log analytics workspace that we have here in Office 365. That is not going to work. The architecture of the log analytics workspace itself is exactly the same. However, this log analytics workspace here in Microsoft 365, in the Azure Active Directory subscription, is what we call Microsoft managed. And that means that Microsoft has been setting up some limitations in what kind of data it can store in order to save money and to keep performance going. So it is the same. However, the log analytics workspace on Microsoft 365 is somewhat tuned down in its capabilities because the solutions that are going to make use of this are also fixed in your Azure Resource Manager subscriptions, where IaaS and PaaS live. Then you have more of an open you have an open log analytics workspace. So this is what we call customer managed, and therefore we are not as limited as we would be in the other one. So if you would go in and what we can do if we have this situation going, and if we use the right Microsoft Defender solutions, we can even add more information into the system, even from other clouds, like maybe your own private cloud, which is what we call on-prem, or even third-party cloud-based solutions like AWS and Google Cloud, or GitHub integration is also there. So that allows us to get some extra data in, which is nice because we, the IT people, we have to take care about the entire digital estate. Digital estate is a word that Microsoft uses for everywhere your data goes, right? So everywhere my data goes, we are responsible for that, and therefore we want to make sure that we know what's going on there. Now, also, if I want to make this drawing even more complete, then we get basically the same drawing here on the other side. So that means that you could also integrate your on-prem infrastructure information into those into the environment in the Azure Resource Manager log analytics workspace. So we are going to quickly go and sort of create the same kind of situation here. Now you are going to see now that you may go and configure sort of a duplicate situation like this, right? Because why would I do both, right? You don't have to use both in this case. There is indeed ways for us to integrate information from virtual machines straight into Defender for Cloud. There is information that we can get from identity-based solutions into Defender for Cloud. From the firewall, we can integrate, for example, with Microsoft Sentinel, and also third-party cloud-based solutions could also send their data into Microsoft Sentinel. And that also includes, again, maybe AWS-based solutions or the Google Cloud Platform-based solutions, if you wish, and all kinds of other third-party based applications. Now, as you can see, we can create the same solution via two different areas. You could check, okay, which of the two would be the best? Well, the best would be the one on the Azure Resource Manager side, because that is more open, so you have more control on what would be going on there. However, that is also going to be the more expensive solution. So that is something that you could be checking on. Cost is important here, and also, some companies, they may be using a lot of Microsoft 365 kind of solutions, but they may not be using Azure Resource Manager solutions, right? If you are not using Azure Resource Manager solutions, it makes no sense to start building it because of this, because we do have some tools that can help us in the Microsoft 365 area as well. So this is what the architecture is like. What I will do here, let me get that fixed. I'm going to save this picture here. Let's name this the Microsoft monitoring, .png. This is going to be a picture. If you want to get a copy of this, the best way to get that copy is to go to my website, which is here at moa.ms. This is my website that I use for sharing information with students and attendees of my webinars. If you go into the page called Azure Dude here in the top, then what you'll notice is that in 5 minutes or so, this account will tweet that picture. That helps. Maybe, hopefully that helps. This is what you could be checking out. So now let's have a look at what that means. So let's look at what this here means in your portals, in your Microsoft 365 management environment. You will notice that these diagnostics, they are sent into the log analytics workspace a lot. For example, you may have been working with the new Microsoft Azure Active Directory portal, Microsoft Entra. If you have not been working with Microsoft Entra, then the very next time you will do something in Azure Active Directory, from now on you will be connecting to entra.microsoft.com, where you will find the new Microsoft Azure Active Directory portal. It's perfectly capable of doing the exact same things as the old Azure Active Directory portal, but this is just new, therefore we want to be using this. That makes sense, I guess. So here, for example, just to give you an idea, when users are signing in, then we will write down all kinds of information from Azure Active Directory into a log analytics workspace about the users signing in. And for example, here we have one solution based on that log analytics workspace, and that is the sign-in logs. So here, for example, we could check the sign-ins for, let's say, the last 24 hours in my organization. It shows that I have been doing stuff over the last few days, as you can tell, over the last 24 hours. And when a user signs in, you get all kinds of information about that sign-in, right? You get to see what kind of client, what user, the location that user is using, the IP address, information about the device, some authentication details, whether or not conditional access has been used or not. Well, all that stuff is here, right? All that stuff is being configured here. So this is one example of storing data in a Azure. Now, not only here, but there's many ways that Microsoft stores data and many ways that we can check out that data. But maybe the most, let's say, a pure way to access that data is by running Custo query language queries into the dataset. Now, I'm not going to, the purpose of today's session is not that we are going to learn how that Custo query language works. However, I just want to show you how to get access to it here in the Microsoft Defender home in security.microsoft.com. If you go for hunting and then advanced hunting, here you are able to start working with, let me do some cleanup here. You can start working with some queries. And here on the left-hand side, you can see all kinds of, as it shows, like little databases. However, this is the way that a Azure Data Explorer stores data. It creates these little table-based database. Well, it looks like data, like virtual tables. And here, for example, we have an Azure Active Directory sign-in events table. And if I want to check out what is in that table, we can just start entering that the name of that table here. And then when we just go and just query the name of the table, that's the only thing we need to do. Just run that query. Notice that you will get all kinds of results, and you can see that we have a lot of different things that are happening. So you can see people sign in, and we can take, for example, one of the values here, and you can get all kinds of information out of this. Here, for example, see if access was used, IP addresses, the location, the latitude, the longitude are being shown, where the named locations are being shown. So just like that, we get basically the information that we get here from the sign-ins are also shown here in the Data Explorer in the log analytics workspace in a more, let's say, pure way. And here you can see that in the last, what is it here? If I run this query, it shows 9,738 different results. But depending on how we create our Custo query here, we are being we can start diving into details here. So all kinds of information about the user here, operating systems and so on, multi-factor authentication info, what kind of browser, what kind of version, where the location, all that information is here. Right? So you could, for example, go in and say, hey, maybe I'm not interested in everything, but you know what? I'm going to say where, and then we can start diving into the solution. We can say, hey, where's city? Where city equals, and then we do something like Amsterdam. If you are signing in from that location, right? So I can now create my own to be a little bit more exact in what my outcome would be, right? So that is what you can also go to yes, where city equals Amsterdam, and for example, where and then I think the OS the platform equals, I could choose, for example, Mac OS as well. It's sensitive by this, so I have to write everything exactly right, and that's maybe even the results. You only have 2,002 left, but you can also from user, and just like this, you can go and get all that data out. Now, like I mentioned, you don't have to understand this Custo query language. I can imagine that this kind of information gets you interested. If you are interested, then I'm happy to direct you to my MOAB website again. And in the MOAB website, if you go into the show notes section here, I actually have got a couple of really nice resources that take you through the process of understanding and also learning how to use the Custo query language. So if you're interested, this is something that you may want to go and dive into. Now we can see that we have all kinds of resources sending that data into that log analytics space. One of the things is we have email events. We have an email events section. If I want to check out, for example, email events, and I'm just going to go and leave everything open now, then I'm going to run a query that is going to show me interesting information about email. And here I get all kinds of information about emails that I have been receiving. So everything about email, for example, is also being written down. So not just what happens to users, or not just what happens to devices, also what happens to users in the case of email or spam, and you can see, for example, what happened in what kind of URLs are being sent to users. Are users clicking on URLs? That information we can have. And here we can actually see in the list of tables what kind of information we could grab out of that system. So I can hear you think now, oh, Alex, this is so cool. And yes, that is correct. It is super cool. But the purpose of all this is that we are going to make sure that we use this information because we want our digital estate, our IT environment to be more secure. We want to make sure that everything is protected better. And how can we implement this? Well, we need to start to interpret this data. Now, typically, we use this kind of data for a couple of purposes. One of them is that we can, one of the things that we want to implement here, or that we want to do is do endpoint detection and response, or sorry, not endpoint detection and response, XDR, so extended detection and response. This means that we need to be able to detect if something bad happens, and we need to be able to respond to it. And one of the things that we are going to do with this is that we are going to, and that is what is super important to us, we want to reduce the attack surface. So we want to think about attack surface reduction here. And in order to reduce the attack surface, we need to know what should be done in order to get to a better level of security. And that is exactly where the Microsoft Secure Score comes in. So the Secure Score is a solution that is based on what that log analytics workspace is showing us, is receiving from us. Now, you can imagine that the more products you have that are sending data into the log analytics workspace, also the more details you will get on what you can do in order to make things better. Now, here in this environment that I'm showing you here in the this is my own tenant where I use for email and Teams and such. That is what we're looking right now at. Well, what we see here is first of all the secure score overview. The secure score overview is about giving us some nice info, a dashboard that we can use to see how things are going. First of all, obviously the most important value here is the secure score itself. So here you can see that I have a secure score of 69%. Then you can see over time that this has changed a little bit. Sometimes it went a little bit lower and it went a little bit higher, just like that, right? So it's not that it's like big shifts, but just a little bit over time. And also we can check out how this breaks down by category. For example, when it comes to my secure score for identity, I have received 86 something percent. For data, 88%. For device management, I have 62%, and my applications are protected at 89%. So all that averaged out results into a secure score 69% here. So, well, good to know, right? So we know this. However, we can also check, okay, what does this value actually mean here? And one of the things that you might like to check out is maybe your secure score against organizations of a similar size. So I have an organization of a, well, very, very small size. It just has a few users in. I got like 69%, but, well, organizations like mine only get to 46 or 62%. Now, this could raise a couple of questions. Maybe you're looking at this and think, okay, if I get to see what other people's or other organizations' secure score is, then other organizations may also know my secure score, and maybe not my secure score by the company and exactly that it is us, but apparently Microsoft is sharing some information for my environment too in order to calculate an average secure score for all organizations of a similar size. And that is indeed what is happening. So what is happening all the way in, let's say, in the bottom here, then Microsoft also has its own, let's say, Azure. Let's name this the Azure Global Log Analytics solution, analytics, right? And what is in fact happening is that we are sending some data into that environment. This is anonymized, so that is for sure, and it's only used for well, security and well, pretty much improvements that Microsoft wants to implement into the Microsoft Azure environment. That is, so it's all anonymized, but based on that information, we are able to tell that there is organizations of a similar size. Maybe I want to do some other comparison here. We could set up a filter where we could say, yeah, you know what? Maybe I want to filter this on everything, or maybe I just want to be thinking about identity, and then we can also check that our secure score on identity and then organization of a similar size also have a different level there. So that, by the way, that filter does not only apply to that comparison here; this applies to everything. But that is what it shows. So you can actually check out this kind of information. And in the middle, you will get actions you can take. For example, what can we do to improve our security score? For example, what can we do to put that secure score up a little bit in order to make sure that we have everything protected in a better way. So that is the steps you can take. And then a little bit down, you can see some history here. So, hey, we got 8 extra points by completing something. We got 8 extra points by completing something else. We got 8 extra points by completing even something else as well. I'm going to be honest about this. It's not that I have been doing anything myself. Apparently, Microsoft has been implementing some changes, and that would have an impact on my score here, right? So that is how I can. Sometimes you gain points, sometimes you lose some points. The Microsoft secure score is something that you want to keep in mind here. Now, one more thing that I want to mention here about that secure score from this view is that here we have a little drop-down menu for including options. And this is actually quite an interesting one. So if I check my secure and score and click include, then I can say, okay, what is going to be my score if all of my planned actions are completed, right? That may affect my secure score. Or what is my achievable score? So this will show the score that can be achieved with your Microsoft licenses that we currently have and the risks that we have accepted at this point. So if I want to check out my achievable score here, then you will see that, and it actually shows down here, my achievable score is way higher than this. So my achievable score is 100%, 100%. Here the achievable score is also close to 100%. You can see only when it comes to devices, 823 out of 828 points. And here we get an achievable score of 100%. So according to my licenses, according to the licenses that I have, I could get very close to 100%. Now let me open up another tenant here. So let's open up the security portal for another tenant that I have that I run. Now you don't know much about me, but there's one thing that I can tell you about me and that is I have no life. And that means that I do stuff that takes a lot of time, but because I have no life, I can easily do that. One of the things that I did is I created an entire Microsoft 365 environment around about that TV series called The Office. So, for example, if I would check out the user base in this tenant, then you will notice that I have created all kinds of users of characters that appear in that series. I even took the time to put pictures with that as well. So, yeah, I have no life. In this tenant, I do have a lot of licenses though, but not all. So if I'm going to check out the security score here, first of all, you'll notice that this security score is quite low. Also, compared to organizations of the similar size, it is also low. And if I include, for example, my achievable score, then you'll notice that my achievable score is by far not going to be everything. When it comes to identity, I get this. For my achievable score, for data, I do not get everything. And for apps, I do get more, right? So there we have a couple of options. But what it doesn't show is anything related to devices. Here I have information about devices, but the main difference between these two tenants is that in this tenant, I do not have the license for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And therefore, there's lots of things that I cannot solve. So that is how you could go and check out this content. You could also say, hey, what is my current license score? So what can I achieve with the licenses that I have? And in this case, what I have is an environment that has a Microsoft 365 license. So therefore, I'm pretty much able to do everything. And in that other tenant, if I check out this, if I would only include my current license score, then you'll also see that we do not have all the licenses here, right? So that makes a difference. So this is a different way of looking into what we are going to get. And shows, okay, what have you been scheduling? And apparently the planned score is not going to be any different than my current score. And the reason for that is that I haven't been managing my recommended activities that I need to take. So one of the things that I want to make sure is I want to follow up on, well, recommended actions, right? I want to go in and well, I want to make things better. Now, here we see the complete list of recommended actions, and the status of all of these recommendations are set to address. Or if I scroll further down enough, I can also see that some of those recommendations have been indeed completed, and therefore we did get the points that recommended action would give us, right? So here we have, for example, if we say, hey, ensure that intelligence for impersonation protection is enabled, I get 8 out of 8 points, right? So yes, I have everything completed. Also, we have a nice into the score impact, the number of points that you have achieved currently for that recommendation, whether or not this has to be addressed. And one of the things we could do is we can manage this, and we can at one point assign this task to a certain person, which means it's going to be a planned activity. And then this, well, if we check out the planned score, it will include the planned activity to be reached, and then, well, we can sort of keep up with what the purpose would be for this machine. So we do have a lot of those recommended actions that we can address. So if you check out this table, there's of course the name of the action, the score impact. There is the points that you may or may not have, the status, whether or not it is regressed, which means that well, is this something that we do no longer need? Then another thing that we could do is verify if in my environment we do have the license for, well, solving this. So as you can see, I have all kinds of solutions, and in my case, because I have an E5 license, I have a license for pretty much everything. Maybe if I would check this other tenant and check out the recommended actions here, then I may have some things here, for example here, that I do not have the license for, right? So in that case, because I do not have the license, well, I will not be able to solve it, right? That's the idea. Well, but for most things, luckily, I do have the license. So you also have to be, well, realistic. So maybe it is good to go and say, okay, what can I get with my license here? So how far can I go? And that here we can see how we can get, if we use all the licenses, we can get to 99.15%, right? That's how that shows. And then we have those recommended actions that we can dive into. Is there something that Microsoft needs to update? Is there any notes at this point that we have? Well, and when did we get the last, when did we update this list the last time? And that would be, well, I think yesterday. Here, so that is what you get to see here, and the product involved. So maybe if you have a larger organization and you have, for example, departments in your organization that are responsible for, well, pieces of the IT spectrum here, then one of the things that you could do is maybe use these filters and say, okay, you know what? If I am responsible for, I don't know, Microsoft Teams, right? Then I could go in and show only those improvement actions related to Microsoft Teams, and then me, the Teams admin, can focus on these things. And then someone else could be also working on other products. Then you could go and say, okay, maybe it has something to do with the Defender for Endpoint here, or Defender for Office. Let's take Defender for Office as an example, apply, and here we can see that, well, in Defender for Office, I do have a couple of things that I can go in and check out. And here we can see that we do have the license. So yes, it makes sense at this point to get it fixed, right? And then also you may want to, and that is something that happens automatically, you may want to order by score impact. Because if I want to achieve an extra 3.42%, I only have to do this, right? So that already gets me from 39 to, what is it, 42 point something, 43 maybe. Well, and that is a good improvement, right? It's almost 10%. So we have a couple of things that we could get here. Some of them are very low, right? Some of them don't give you too much. This is where you can define what we call is your low hanging fruit. So with this, what we get is a list of activities we can take. Also nice from this view is the history view. So what has happened lately to get some higher level of a secure score. So on February 23rd, I have been gaining 0.03 points. That's not much by making a change here. I also gained 5 points by creating a data loss prevention policy. Gained 1 point for something with sensitivity labeling, and here we can actually go in and also sometimes we regress points. For example, we have 7 points regressed because well, if we protect all users with the sign-in risk policies, here we see, for example, that there is 23 more users here are, well, not protected with this, right? You have 23 out of 23 users that do not have a sign-in risk policy turned on. Therefore, I have a lot of points that I don't have. And maybe this is something that I want to implement. Right, and here we can see the history of this. Also, you can monitor the metrics and trends, and this is what you could go. This is what you could go and check out. Here we see, for example, my score, organizations of a similar size. Right, you can check this out. Again, what happened lately? Then we have a regression trend. So hey, how many points were regressed over time? Risk acceptance trend. So if you have a risk that you just decided to accept, then we would be well, then it's also going to show here. In this case, I have 0. Therefore, well, it's just like that. Also here we can filter on different categories. Also here we can filter on days. The custom date range. If I want to go select a starting point here, then the oldest data I can get is the 4th of December, which is pretty much close to 90 days. This is because the data in this log analytics workspace is fixed to 90 days. Here in the log analytics workspace in the Azure Resource Manager environment, we have the opportunity to tell how long we want to go and retain the data ourselves, up to 2 years. Here in the log analytics workspace, we can just go into we can store the data for around 90 days. So now what we see here is that when we look into the Microsoft Secure Score, then well, this is pretty much it, right? This is how we can interpret the data here, and how we can take actions. In the rest of the session, we're going to look into what can we so how can we, for example, make use of different Office, different endpoint, cloud apps, and so on to make to increase the score. So what are the things that we can do? But before we get to that part, I also want to show you another portal, which is the compliance portal, the compliance.microsoft.com portal, which is basically the home for Microsoft Purview. Microsoft Purview is everything when it comes to compliance here. Here on the right hand side, you can see also a compliance score. If I open up the compliance manager, it will actually show me the compliance score, which is basically the same thing as the secure score. However, now we are looking into what we have done when it comes to compliance. Now, if you do not have a lot of experience with compliance, compliance is about to what level do we meet regulations that have been assigned to us by either government or industry that we are active in. For example, if you are in the healthcare business, then well, you have some rules that you have to follow. If you're in the financial business, you have some rules that you have to follow as well. If you work for a government, you have some rules to follow. If your organization is in the EU, then there is something called the Global Data Protection Regulation for privacy. That is also something that you would have to follow just because you are in Europe, and therefore we can measure our compliance with those compliance assessments. For example, here we could add assessments in our environment that we are meeting in. So, for example, if you want to check to what level your organization is, for example, let's say ISO 27001 for example, the Argentina Personal Data Act, or if you are looking for the Belarus Law on Information, or if you are looking, and you can see that Microsoft is very, very active on this side, if you want to check to what level you are compliant with the ISO 27001, or if you want to check, for example, for let's say you are based in Norway. Let's just see how lucky we are here when you are based in Norway. All right, no Norway, okay. Oh, maybe because this is interesting. Let's just go a little bit further down. Well, we have nothing. Oh, maybe I just want to search for the word Nor and see what we get. Okay. So apparently in Norway, well, either Microsoft doesn't care or Norway doesn't have those second. I'm afraid it's the first one. Anyway, so this allows you to go into compliance, and also here is a lot of improvement action in the same thing about it. So this is we have now. Make sure that your security score is going to be improved. In order to make that happen, there is stuff that you want to take care of, and well, there's a couple of things that you could use to get some help out of this. So because well, in Microsoft Secure Score, you can see that here is quite a low level of secure score for this organization. However, there are some recommended actions I can take. It is offered by impact. So, for example, here we have a recommended action I can take that do not expire passwords. That is something that I could do apparently in Azure Active Directory. If I open up this, if I just click that link here, if I open up this recommendation, then I can start to manage the recommendation. First of all, it tells me a description. So Microsoft says that research has found that when periodic password resets are enforced, passwords become less secure. Okay, so maybe I want to go and disable the expiry acceleration. Now the implementation status here says that your current policy is set to let passwords expire. So maybe I want to solve this issue. Now I'll tell you before I dive into this specific recommendation. Yesterday I set this policy. So yesterday I already changed this value. However, and as you can see here, the recommendation is apparently still here. But that is Microsoft is not going to do this let's say 24/7. As you can see here, they have a little line that says actions you can take to improve your secure score. Score updates may take up to 24 hours. So it may just take a day before they recognize that this is switched. So this is the information that we have, our current situation. Well, the user impact is that your user no longer in the it's an action plan. So I can open this up and I can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to plan this, right? So it's planned. I may want to go and set up a note that says, just make the change or something like this. Or maybe you can go into and we have the change number, which we use in our administrative software, for example, 1, 2, 3. Or you choose to accept this risk. Sometimes, in some situations, you need to accept a certain risk. Sometimes it is just not. Sometimes it is just not something you can solve because of your needs in the organization. For example, sometimes you need to you need to accept something because the way you work is fixed into the organization and very difficult to change. Just yesterday in the Dutch news, it was all over the news in the Netherlands that the tax organization for the Dutch government, so the organization that is responsible for gathering taxes by the civilians. They have systems that are based on computer solutions that were created in the 1970s. Wow, yes, that is true. So, in a situation there, you may not be able to implement everything because things you implement here may affect how people can access solutions that are running in sort of an on-prem environment, and that may not be compatible. If that is the case, then you may need to just accept the risk. You can also resolve problems through third-party solutions or through alternate mitigations, like we solved it in a different way. Maybe now I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be planned, so I'm going to save this, change this status to planned, which means that I now, it is planned, right? So it says, hey, this is something that we are going to take care of. So that's the only thing we can do at this point. We can manage tags. So we can say, hey, type to find or create tags. So we can go and say, hey, this is something that I think is responsible for the maybe identity team. So I can go and say, hey, I have an identity team that is going to make use of this. I can also select an existing tag. Is it already there? But it's not. So I'm going to create a tag, and then I can go and save and close, and then it's tagged for the identity team. Now, what I may want to do at one point is go to filters, and maybe I want to go and check out based on certain tags that we have down here, right? So this allows you to go in. Maybe I want to just check out what has been planned here. So yes, that is something that we can implement in that case, just like that. Now, as you can see, because I did something, my history is sort of showing me, and then it says, well, this user here has marked the action as planned. That is the history of this. That's it, right? That is the history here. Also, from this location, I can share this with people. So I can go say, hey, I want to copy a link, or I want to make this in Teams, or maybe I want to implement this in Microsoft Planner and put it somewhere for the IT department, maybe, and put in a task. And then we can, well, the security officer, for example, could take a lead in how, well, the identity team or how the IT team could go in and well, solve the solutions or recommendations. Also, we have an up and down arrow, so this allows us to just go up and down the list in the left-hand side here. So this is maybe a way to to dive into these solutions more easy. Oh, and by the way, there's also the implementation button, and it says, hey, you do have, you meet the requirement, the prerequisites, because you do have an Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2 license. It doesn't necessarily mean that the solution I'm going to implement needs Plan 2. Maybe the solution only needs Plan 1. I have Plan 2, so it's good. And then it says, okay, and how are we going to set this up? So apparently, in order to fit this, you need to be in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, go to settings, organizational settings, password expiration policy, and then check the box there. Now, I could go and follow that lead. So I could go, let's go to the admin portal first. Then it a little bit, it wanted me to go into, what was it, the settings and then organizational settings. Then it wanted me to go to something with security, I think. Let me do a quick peek. It wanted me to go into organization, then security and privacy, and then the password expiration policy. So it's now going in security and privacy here, password expiration policies here. Now, I mentioned I have enabled this, right? So I did that yesterday, but the requirement is it was not yet being fixed. Well, my view is asking the exact right question at the exact right time, and that is about that short break. So what we'll do is we will take a 20-minute break. So look at your watch. 20 minutes from now, which is pretty close to 10:40, we will be moving forward. All right. So let's go in and we have a break until 10:40. So enjoy your little coffee break. I will get some more coffee and we will talk later. Defender for Endpoint, well, sort of get to understand like Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, and so on. And also a very important part of the Microsoft Secure Score is those Defender products. So now I would say it would be a good time to well, sort of get to understand the Microsoft Defender products a little bit better in order to know what they do, how they interact, and how they affect our secure score. And obviously, how can we, for example, easily go and make use of those vendors to quickly improve a secure score. So that is going to be our next part. I think so far I have been saving this picture here, so we don't need to save that once more. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to get a hold on, if you want to get a copy of the whiteboards that I make, just go to moab.ms, which is the moab.ms is my website. Here in the Azure Dude page, you will find a copy of the pictures, and this is where it actually takes you to Twitter, where you can just go in and come up and just get your copy here. Right? This is the easy way to get the whiteboards. Maybe another thing you'd like to check out via the Moab website. Another thing you may like to check out is my show notes, which have some nice resources based on all kinds of presentations that I do. And if you like my way of presenting technology, then you also might like to check out my YouTube channel, where I regularly post well, information like I presented to you right now. All right. So that being said, I just want to go and dive into those Microsoft Defender products a little bit better. Now, in order to understand Microsoft Defender, or let's say Microsoft 365 Defender, well, one of the important parts of Microsoft 365 Defender is Microsoft 365. If we think about Microsoft 365, then well, the most important component of Microsoft 365 is the user. The user is supposed to be able to work with something that we call a modern workplace, and that is exactly where Microsoft comes into place. A modern workplace is it is a device that the user may be able to use. Here we go. So it's the user and the device together. And if we think about a modern workplace, then well, the key features here. The key features is that users should be able to be productive. Users should be able to be productive pretty much from anywhere and on any time. That is important. And well, also, we want to be able to do this from any device in a secure and in a compliant way. That is, let's say, these are the 6 most important values of a modern workplace. And if you think about Microsoft Defender, Microsoft 365 Defender, then that is all about these 3 options in the bottom. Productivity, for example, is what we do with Exchange and SharePoint and Teams and so on. You know, that's what we get there. So in order to understand Defender, there is different Defender products. One of them is one Defender product that is quite important when it comes to the device, is where we can think about devices of being managed. When a device is managed, basically what we do is we control the device's configuration. There is a product in Intune that is responsible for that. You may have heard of it. It's called Microsoft Intune. However, Microsoft Intune works very close together with one of the Microsoft Defender products, the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Or MDE is a product that is about a couple of things. First of all, it's about threat management, and one of the things that threat management means for Microsoft is endpoint detection and response. Right? So that's one of the components: endpoint detection and response. And it's about ASR, attack surface reduction. Now, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is by default part of Microsoft 365 Business Premium and E3 and also E5. Now, when we think about attack surface reduction, this is the relation to Microsoft through the Microsoft Secure Score. So if you check out what Microsoft Defender for Endpoint can do, it will connect to a client. Actually, there's a little agent that you install on the client in order to communicate between the Microsoft Endpoint client and servers. And then what happens is that this agent here is able to tell Microsoft Defender for Endpoint what kind of things are going on in that way. And then Defender for Endpoint comes up with all kinds of recommendations that we can follow. And well, that is pretty much the recommendations that we are going to see in Microsoft Secure Score. Just to give you an example of what that means, by the way, I need to switch tenants here, and that is because the tenant that I have just used that doesn't have Defender for Endpoint. This one has. So here we can actually see on the right hand side already a lot of Defender for Endpoint recommendations that I could go into in my Secure Score. So well, that makes interesting. So in order to get to this, here in my Defender for Endpoint environment, I have a couple of assets or devices that I manage using Defender for Endpoint. For example, one of the computers that I am managing is my daughter's laptop, also my son's laptop, some other computers that I have. It includes also servers, as you can see. There is support for Windows Server here. Also, third-party OSs like iPads and iPhones and Android devices could be managed like this. So that is something to inspect. And then, if I check out, for example, one of those devices, then what you'll notice here is that Defender for Endpoint is going to give me some nice information. It's going to give me some nice information to protect and help me protect those devices. So here, for example, if I check out this information, I get some info device, right? Then what you'll see is that it also runs a software inventory. So we now get to see what kind of software is installed on this device. It includes also the version number and, for example, the known weaknesses. So on my daughter's laptop, there is Zoom Meetings installed and there is 13 weaknesses active. Windows 11 needs to be updated. InDesign from Adobe needs to be updated. All the other stuff seems to be all right. You can see all the software here. We may be able to find some browser extensions. We can check out what vulnerabilities are active on those devices. Missing updates could be shown here as well. Certificate inventory, some nice information about certificates, but, and that's what we want to be heading for, also security recommendations. And well, obviously I need to do some updates, update Adobe InDesign, update Windows, update Zoom meetings, but, and that's where it gets interesting, also it gets us some information on what we can do in order to, well, make changes to the Windows settings in order to get this machine better protected. For example, I want to make sure to enable automatic updates. And here we can go in and say, hey, this is one of those recommendations that we could easily get from Microsoft Secure Score. And here we get some, just like the Microsoft Secure Score recommendations. What does this mean? What is the potential risk? What are some insights that make sense? And here we can also see why we get this. This configuration is recommended by SIS and STIG. Right? That is actually, isn't STIG a Norwegian name? Well, I think it is. So you can actually go in and say, hey, there are some benchmarks that say this, and it also says no device in my organization are configured as recommended. There are some related threats about this. So maybe you want to read something about, for example, a certain type of ransomware, and this brings me to a certain threat that we can go in and check out. Also, there is no incident so far, so there's nothing going on that part. But this actually, you can really go deep into what it does mean. So what does the analyst say about this threat? What are related incidents if we've seen them in my organization? What are the impacted assets here? So no alerts. That nothing bad has happened because of this, but well, we may want to go and make some changes. So here we see some recommended actions that also would protect ourselves against this specific threat, right? So that is something that I would like to check out in this case. So this is one thing. Then if I go back, because I want to go back in here, let me just go, you know what, I want to go back to the device. Let's just go back to the device quickly, take that same computer and then check out the security recommendations. Well, here we have that list of recommendations. And also, if you open up the recommendation, it also shows a remediation options. So how to fix this. For example, we want to go and set organization, or if I use Intune, they say, then apply a certain Intune profile. So what I want to do is create a configuration profile. I'm going to go in and click a new policy for platform, and I'm going to choose for instance templates here, and then I'm going to search here, and that's right. Then we can save that policy and well put it to the and make it happen. So if I want to do this, it basically tells me to either go to group policy or either go to Intune to get it fixed, or a certain registry key if you have no solution to fix your if you have no solution to fix things, then that is also something you can take care of. This is what you can do, and just like that, we can go recommendation by recommendation by recommendation. Currently, Microsoft Defender credentials, it takes threats that are involved and the remediation options that we can take. Ensure that the system prerequisites are met as described in the hardware and software requirements, and then you need to enable this using either Intune or using group policy or registry tool, and then you can just dive in, and here we get explained a little bit. Okay, how are we going to enable that disregard? This is how to do it by group policy. This is how we by Intune, and it says, hey, you need to go and create a policy and enable it. Right? So just like that, we get all kinds of solutions, and we can take all that back into the Microsoft 365, in Microsoft 365 Secure Score recommendation actions, and we can just go and take all these. Here we see all kinds of recommendations that we may need to implement. Right? So we may need to make some changes here, get some points, and go through these. Now, like I mentioned, Defender for Endpoint is it pretty much always points to Intune to solve the problem. Now, if you want to speed up things, Intune is about mobile device management. Now, don't think about mobile device management as just Windows and those systems. So one thing with Intune is we can go in and well we can make changes. You can do this in different ways. Set up so-called configuration profiles. Also, what you can do is implement endpoint security policies. And one of the nicer things when it comes to endpoint security policies is implement security baselines. I want to speed up processing all kinds of recommendations that Defender for Endpoint makes up, because here these security baselines, they can actually be pointing towards those recommendations here. So the recommendations we have could be implemented by a security baseline in Intune to well speed up that process massively. So how are we going to take care of that? Well, in order to fix that, we now see, so per device, we could check out a list of security recommendations. Now, you may not want to check this out per device. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe I want to go into my endpoint management, vulnerability management recommendations. Here we see the complete list of recommendations for all the devices that we have. We can here see for what device do I need to do this, right? That is something I need to do. It even tells me to update my iPhone operating system. So, well, that is so cool. Now, I'm not really sure if I have done it yet, but well, we can always check. So with that, we can go in and check out whether or not we need to do this for my devices. Update Office, update Zoom meetings. Yes, that makes sense. Well, and do all kinds of other security related stuff like this. You can see the amount of exposed devices here. Right? The impact is on that backend side. So yes, there are some things that I really want to do. So I got a question in that says, what kind of devices are in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint? As I've understood previously, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint does not include cloud devices. Is that correct? Well, if you think about cloud devices like Windows 365, like a virtual machine that users use to sign into to be productive, well, nowadays Defender for Endpoint supports both Azure Virtual Desktop as well as Windows 365. So that should be in there. I think actually if I dive into this, this device here, my CPC device is a cloud PC. So that is in fact supported. And for my cloud PC, it also shows the software inventory. It also comes with security recommendations that you may want to do. Oh, I may need to update Windows as this is shown here. Browser extensions, maybe discovered vulnerabilities if they are there. Missing updates as well. You know what? I definitely need to update. So yeah, it is supported nowadays. which is good. But here we see that list of recommendations. Here we want to go and go through and save and solve the issues. Now, one of the things that we could do is we can make use of Intune security baselines in order to implement the Defender for Endpoint solutions. If you want to do this in Intune, you obviously have to be in the Intune portal. You can get there by going for endpoint.microsoft.com. That is the Microsoft Intune Admin Center, as you can see here. In here, you'll notice I have a couple of devices that are indeed managed in this case. So if I check out my devices, you see some of the devices here pretty nicely. If I want those devices to be implementing the security recommendations for example, Windows that are supposed to be happening by Defender for Endpoint, then I could go into Intune, go to Endpoint Security. Now, from here, we have a couple of options. One of the options is to go and make use of attack surface reduction rules, where you could, for example, create a certain set of settings that are related to, protecting my machines. Here we see all kinds of activities or changes you can do to our Windows clients in order to get the devices better secured, right? This is something we could do. Or what you could do is go in here in the top and then check out your security baselines, because with security baselines, we can go in and we can deploy a Microsoft Defender for Endpoint baseline. And if I check out the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint baseline, then what I can check out here is the settings that are fixed by those are the values that Microsoft Defender for Endpoint thinks that you should implement when it comes, for example, to the firewall, to BitLocker, to Windows Smart Screen as well as Microsoft Defender on that client as well. So this is what we can then has this policy assigned, then you can go and say, hey, I want to assign this to my devices, and therefore certain settings are going to be applied on those devices. Well, this is a way to speed up the process of increasing your secure score, because if this is all applied to your clients, the secure score is going to be higher as well. So nice way to get things done. Then the next step is that we have Defender for Endpoint implement those settings. Intune could implement those settings. Once the settings have been applied, once Defender for Endpoint recognizes that those settings have been applied, then we will tell. Then also the Microsoft Secure Score is going to be going up because of the implementation of those solutions. By the way, for the full view, there is a mobile device management client here that is configured to communicate with that with the Intune components here, right? So that's how a device is managed. Now, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is one of those nicer solutions to implement. If your customers are using Microsoft Defender for Microsoft 365 Business Premium, then also Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is there. However, it is named Microsoft Defender for Business. It has some limited capabilities, but still it is able to do quite a lot of these things that we just mentioned. Defender for Endpoint can help you increase your secure score massively, especially if you include it in Intune, because that will speed up that process also. So that is beneficial. Then if we check back with our secure score, in my case here, I can see that there's a lot of Defender for Endpoint stuff going on. Actually quite a bit, right? Also, we can see that we can have, for example, Microsoft Teams related settings here. And then, for example, Microsoft Defender for Office that we want to go in and implement. Microsoft Defender for Office is the other product, one of the other products. Now, when we think about Microsoft Defender for Office, then this is all about email and collaboration. Now, email is Exchange Online, and collaboration is everything that we do with SharePoint and Teams and OneDrive. So, if you want to understand Microsoft Defender for Office, then, for example, let's say we have a company that is sending us an email. So we can sort of have an email server which is located on the internet. If that email server wants to send us an email in our organization, and then one of the things that we could do is go in, for example, and we have the internet here. Again, this doesn't look like a croissant at all. Then we have on the internet, we have a database, and the database is our public DNS, right? So the public DNS will tell using an MX record that where you should go and send email for our organization. Now that MX record is going to tell that sending mail server to send the email to a component in Microsoft 365, which is Exchange Online Protection. That is shortened to EOP. Now, EOP is a standard solution in Exchange for anti-spam as well as anti-malware solution. So pretty much always we will send an email. We will send an email into here. So pretty much what we are doing is we are going to use this MX record to tell the server, send your email here. Now, this is sort of a default. This is default Exchange Online. This is security. So that is something that we always get. But if a user, if a user has a license for Microsoft Defender for Office, all right. So if we are going to, if we also have the Microsoft Defender for Office integration, we shorten this to MDO, then we get something extra. Actually, you get three things extra. We get a safe links policy. That is one component that we can monitor, links that we receive via email or via Teams chat messages as well. Or we have something called safe attachment. And there is something called anti-phishing capabilities. Now, if a user has a license for Defender for Office, then in that case, the email is being forwarded from here into here. And that means that we are now going to, protect our users for phishing mail and attachments and links in an even better way. And if an email is completely legit, if everything is all right, then the email is going to be delivered in the end towards the user's mailbox. Now here we find in the Exchange server somewhere there's a database here, and the database is going to store the email as in the mailbox of the user, right? So this is if you check out how this works, then this is what you get. Now, Microsoft Defender for Office is here in protecting us in email and also in Teams chat messages. It's not just email. So what that means is here, for example, when it comes to, well, if it comes to Defender for Office, it says ensure that no sender domains are allowed for anti-spam policies. So here we get some information. Never add your own accepted domains or common domains, for example, to the allowed domain list. So here apparently this is something that we need to do in order to implement this. Well, we do have the prerequisites here, and we would have to remove all allowed domains and allowed senders from all your inbound anti-spam policies. How do you want to do that? Here we have an anti-spam policy that we need to configure in a certain way, and that is exactly what the purpose is. Now, if you want to set this up, we can set up a plan. We can use tags here, and then obviously we can, and then if we want to implement this here on the left-hand side, we have policies and rules. We have threat policies. We have anti-spam policies here. Now, maybe I have created something here. I have a couple of my spam policies. The anti-spam inbound policy, for example, we can check out. We can actually change this. So how are we going to treat things like spam in this case? Those kind of settings, right? Connection filtering, anti-spam outbound policy here. We can edit protection settings here as well. So just like this, we can do some of our configurations. That is what Defender for Office can give us. In the meantime, I did get a question. The question is as follows. Do you have any tips on understanding the differences between the different pricing tiers for these products without going into too much details? Well, you know what? Let me just show you this one location that I absolutely love. If you want to understand Microsoft 365 licensing, the best place to be at is at m365maps.com. This is one of those URLs to write down. What you get here is views on what kind of licenses contain what kind of products. For example, if you want to check out Microsoft 365 Enterprise, there is, for example, a landscape view that shows in the top line. It says this is what Microsoft 365 is, and then if you check, it contains Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Plan 1. It contains Office 365 E3. It contains EMS E3, and it contains Windows E3. And then down here you'll see E5. And then you get to see what kind of extras you get in Microsoft 365 E5. And then also, for example, here Azure Active Premium Plan 2 is mentioned, or Defender for Endpoint Plan 2 is mentioned, or Defender for Office Plan 2 is mentioned, Defender for Office Plan 1 is mentioned. That is basically what you get from that part, right? So E3 and E5 differences. And what's super nice is that if you don't know what any of these things mean, you can always go in and just click one of those links here, and it will open up an introduction page in what that feature gives you. So from now on, you can never have an excuse not to know what is in what kind of license in Microsoft 365, because this is the ultimate way to check this out. Also, what I like about this website, if you want to go from the other direction, you can go in and say, okay, you know what? Let's just go into the feature matrix down here. Then I can, for example, choose the licenses I would like to compare with each other. Maybe I want to compare E3, E5, and Business Premium. And then here we can see a feature, and you can see in what license it is covered, and if there's any special information about that you may want to know as well. This is super useful. So yeah, I would definitely create a bookmark on the Microsoft 365 or m365maps.com website. So Microsoft Defender for Office is helping us to protect different kinds of things. Email mostly. However, Microsoft Defender for Office safe link solutions. They also work for Teams. Just mentioning here that this is something you may want to go and check out as well. There is a couple of more options. For example, one of the things that you may want to go and check out is another product called Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Let's just go in and write that down for cloud applications. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps is interesting because what it does, it contains a database which is called the application catalog. The application catalog is a solution that shows information about all kinds of information about web-based applications, and we can see information about web-based applications, about for example how these applications implement security, how these applications implement compliance, how these applications implement some legal components, and that is where it gets interesting. We can also monitor the usage of this application, which means that we can check to what extent people in the organization are using the information. And then one of the things that that may be the coolest part here is that we can sanction or unsanction an application. So how this works is as follows. In order to get this working, what you'll notice is that Microsoft Defender for Endpoint has its own database with settings and data. And what happens is that this database is exchanging information with this database here. And the result is that we can then, with Defender for Endpoint, we can monitor what users are doing with their devices, and we can gather that information in Defender for Cloud Apps. Just to give you an example, if I go into a device, for example, into a device in Defender for Endpoint, let's take my daughter's computer here, there's also something called a timeline. And this timeline shows exactly what the user has been doing over time. Everything, not only the user, also the device. So we can see that Outlook has been connecting to components, Teams has been connecting, MS Edge has been connecting somewhere to a certain IP address, and I may even be able to check what that was connecting to. In this case, it's just an IP address, but you could also go in and search, for example, for different applications. You can say, hey, is someone connecting to Facebook maybe? And then we can go in and check whether or not Facebook has been used. Or just like this, you can also go in and check, okay, have you been using Netflix or Spotify or whatever kind of application it shows. And then from that information, you can go into something called Defender for Cloud Apps here. And in Defender for Cloud Apps, there is the Cloud Application Catalog. And here we can get information about all kinds of applications. And there is a Cloud Discovery Dashboard. And that allows us to check, okay, has Netflix been used in the organization, or Exchange or SharePoint or whatever other kind of component? Here we can see that people have been using Netflix, for example. One user using 15.8 gigabytes of Netflix here. Maybe over the last 90 days, we can see more users. We can see that we have 2 users here and in total 27.8 gigabytes of data that we spent there. Info about the application is also shown here. Just like that. One of the cool parts is that because of this, we now know what user is doing what, and maybe we want to disallow access to a certain application, and that is what we can do if we want to unsanction the application. Now, one of the things that may improve security for your organization is that you could disallow users to access applications that, for example, do not do well on compliance and security. That is something that you may also want to go and check out. That is Defender for Cloud Apps itself doesn't show a lot of interesting information into the Microsoft Secure Score. You do not really get to see in the set of recommendations a lot of Defender for Cloud Apps here. Sometimes it does. So here, for example, we have a solution that comes from Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, and here it says, hey, maybe you should create a policy to notify about new open authentication-based applications. So maybe I need to do so, and it says, well, what you need to do is go in and go into the Defender for Cloud Apps portal, go to the Out App Policy page, and then you're going to go in and set up a policy like this. And well, this is one of the examples that we can also do. It monitors applications, right? That's what it's used for. So maybe you want to implement this as well. And then we have our fourth Defender product, which is actually very much related to Azure Active Directory here. So we have Azure AD. One of the products we can implement, so let's say together with Azure Active Directory, is Microsoft Defender for Identity. Now, Microsoft Defender for Identity is very often put into the same line or in the same breath of Microsoft Azure Active Directory identity protection. Now, if you look into what the purpose of Microsoft Defender for Identity and identity protection is that, the purpose is that we can help our identity to be more protected. For example, if you check it out, you can go into, I actually have to go into the Entra portal to get there, so it's not in Microsoft Defender here. I do have my identities here, but this just shows information about my Defender for Identity or identity protection. I need to be in the Entra portal, where Azure Directory lives, and here under Protect and Secure, there is something called Identity Protection. And identity protection is about protecting identity. You can see that we even have something called an identity score. And the identity score is the level of security we have level. And here, for example, there is a couple of things we need to do in order to get a level of security for my identities. There is a secure score history for identity, compared to not between one of people. And here we can see that we have some sections. If you do this, we can have a couple of columns. Maybe we want to just add the current and the max score in and the status, which is not by default. Because here, if I just would look into this data, then we actually don't know if we have these points or if we do not have these points. So I want to update my columns with my current score, max score, for the status as well, apply this. And then what you'll notice is that, many of my actions have already been completed. There's only 4 left here. So, for example, I may need to ensure that all users can complete dual-factor authentication. Apparently, if I do so, I get quite a couple of extra percentages. My current score, the maximum score, the user impact, implementation cost may also appear. But here we actually go say, okay, here we have some things that we are going to do. So, what do you need to do here? How will this affect my users? It can take up to 48 hours before my identity security score being updated for this. But then this tells us what to do and how to do. And that is this. Somebody want to go and require two-factor authentication. It says if any of these types of users we're going to require multi-factor, for example, like that you and get your up as well. Because protection is about protecting those user objects in Azure Active Directory. Now, Microsoft Defender Identity is the same purpose. However, it's a component that you are actually going to implement to get integrated with your on-premises Active Directory domain services. So here in your on-prem environment, you may be running that old-fashioned Active Directory service, ADDS, like this. What you could do is you can go and put on your domain controller here, and install a little agent, which is the Microsoft Defender for Identity agent. And that Microsoft Defender for Identity agent here is then going to send information about how people sign in locally into the login workspace that I have for Microsoft 365. And then, based on the data that we find, we may also need to implement some security-related components here. One of the things, for example, that we can implement in Microsoft Defender for Identity is, for example, that you could go in and create a so-called honey token account, which is an account that you're going to implement to that looks like an interesting account for people that are hacking into your systems. And if anything happens with that honey token account, then you're going to be notified about this. Now, if you check out, for example, some of the Microsoft 365 Secure Score recommendations, then, you might see that you fill things out. Let's see if I can go in and just show everything that is related for identity. Here, for example, it may say, here, for example, maybe you want to set up a honey token account to trap malicious hackers. Hey, that sounds like a great idea. I already did it, so that got me that point. Here I actually have something else installed for identity sensor on all domain controls. Here I have here I have a solution. Maybe that's something that you want to deal with because we have we don't have any domain controllers. So I've set this to go say, hey, you know what, I resolve this in another way, or I can go say, hey, I'm gonna that's a risk. Maybe I'm going to change this to planned because what actually is the case is that I do have nowadays a domain controller. Maybe I need to get this fixed. Other stuff is found to be solved as well. And when it comes to my identities, there's much to do here. Here my VPN integration. Here you get to see what to do. At this point, go to the settings and configure VPN radius accounting to enable VPN detections. Now here we can go in to location. This is the Microsoft Defender for Identity settings page. It's we have Defender for in identity protection. Here we can create a user risk policy. For example, you could say, hey, if any of my users is at high risk based on machine learning and AI things that we are monitoring, if that is the case, then we are going to block access for that user. Also, what you can do is create a sign-in risk policy where we can go say, hey, if any of my users is signing in a certain way, then I'm going to block access. One way to provoke a risky sign-in is, for example, by making use of a Tor browser. A Tor browser is used to hide your identity and location on the internet. So, for example, if I would be asking my computer what my IP is, it will actually tell what the IP is and where I am connecting from. In my case, I'm connecting via Rotterdam using KPN. If I would be using a Tor browser here, asking the same question, what is my IP.com? And in that case, it's going to try indeed to figure out where I am located. However, and that is the purpose of a Tor browser, it is going to hide my location on the internet. So it may not be able to see anything, which is the purpose of the Tor browser. So, and then if I, for example, want to sign in into office.com using that browser that hides my location on the internet, then, if that is the case, then let me just try to sign in here. And we are, well, we have to be a little bit patient, obviously. But if I try to sign in, let's say I want to sign in with a user called Michael at dundermifflininc.com. We can do that. Then I have to assign, I have to approve the to do that from this phone. I'm supposed to be able to do that from the phone that I have here. Okay, maybe I need to be patient. Trying to get the sign-in working. No, well, maybe I can use the password instead. Just a quick try here. So here we are, sign in. Then you get some access. I have some access restrictions here. You cannot access this right now. The sign-in is successful, but it doesn't meet the criteria here. This is actually this is one of the ways that we can look into this. Sometimes you get other messages like, "Hey, sign-in was blocked because you are signing in from that we do not trust, or with a sort of a browser that we do not trust, or anything like that." That would also allow us to disallow us to sign in like that. Identity protection also shows me a list of risky users. So, for example, a user could be at risk and therefore not be allowed to sign in. We can also see risky sign-in. So what have people been doing? Why we would say that a sign-in is at risk, right? So we can see things happening to users as well. We can actually go in and check out those sign-ins and see why, for example, the sign-in was detected as a risk. For example, users have been using an anonymous IP address in Miami, Florida, right? Information about the device maybe, and other things that we have been checking out for that sign-in. So with Defender for Identity and with Azure Active Directory Identity Protection, we also add into the system all kinds of data in order to protect users from signing in. So with this, with these kind of solutions, we can do all kinds of fancy things, right? We can do all kinds of extras. Now, what I've shown earlier is that also, on-premise based components could be part of this solution. For example, and now let's just go and say maybe we have this firewall, and maybe we have also via the firewall we have all kinds of third-party cloud applications that users may be using. Like I mentioned, we can use we can get data from, for example, on-prem situations. Oh, you know what? Actually, if I am going to be completely right about this, then we can, for example, choose, for example, from Defender for Identity is already data that we are getting from on-premise machines. Also, my mouse. Also, if I have on this computer installed the MDE sensor, which is the agent for Microsoft Defender Endpoint, then we can have data sent into Defender for Endpoint as well to get more data about our on-premise machines, like virtual machines maybe, or laptops or servers. That data could go that way. Defender for Cloud Apps could be configured to receive data from firewall devices, and Defender for Cloud Apps can also be configured to receive data from third-party cloud-based solutions. So that also gets us some extra information into that system. In order to set, by the way, I think I'm done with this picture. So this is going to be 202. Let's say MS Defender overview.png. Here we are. So now you should be able to download this whiteboard in about 5 minutes. So here we are. So let's say I want to add, for example, the MDE sensor onto a machine to get it, send data into Defender for Endpoint. Well, in that case, in the Microsoft Defender environment, there's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of information. So maybe we want to go and make things a little bit sort of optimized for checking things out here. And here under settings, here we have a settings for endpoints. And if I check the settings for endpoints, if I go all the way down, there is an onboarding component which allows me to onboard all kinds of operating systems into Defender for Endpoint. For example, if I have a server, let's say one of those newer servers, then for example, I can go and run a script to add those machines. Well, then we have to download an onboarding package, run a script in order to have the device onboarded here. For macOS, we can do this. For Linux servers, we can do these kind of things. All the operating systems here that we may want to go and connect to, right? We have different ways to deploy our devices. There's an installation package and an onboarding package. This is how you can have those devices. And it could be anywhere. It could be virtual machines on-premise, could be physical machines on-premise, could be virtual machines in third-party clouds like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud, or let's say the normal Azure locations. That could also be just chosen to send its data in. So for Defender for Endpoint, it is sort of a straightforward activity. Enroll your devices and you're good to go. For Defender for Cloud apps, we can implement firewalls and third-party web-based applications to integrate that data into the application, into the Defender for Cloud app solution. And in order to set that up, we need to be in settings, and then we need to be in cloud application settings. And here we can configure Defender for Cloud apps. Then here I need to do a little bit of searching, but if we scroll down a little bit here, so if you go into connected apps, then you have options for app connectors. And here with app connectors, you can go in and say, hey, maybe I want to add another application, and this shows some of those third-party web-based applications to get data in the system. So maybe you have been working with Slack or ServiceNow, Salesforce, or Google Workspace, or Google Cloud Platform, or Dropbox, or all kinds of applications that you want to add into this. Maybe you have so maybe you have been using with DocuSign, for example. Then you have to put in your user ID and an endpoint. This is what you would get from DocuSign, and then if you have that information, you can start putting the data in, just like that. So there is a couple of third-party apps. If you think that a certain app should be in this list, you can suggest more apps to be integrated in this list for Microsoft to check. This is how you could add third-party applications. For example, I have been connecting my Amazon Web Services integration. As you can see here, if I check it out, I never use it. I am a Microsoft dude, so therefore, I'm not doing a lot of Amazon. But you get some info on Amazon accounts used for Amazon. The activity log, which in my case is empty. Some alerts, which is empty, right? So we don't really get so to see anything of this. Okay, let me just go back one setting, and then I want to go all the way back, right? Do you remember where I was coming from? Browser, yes, here. So I could, for example, also connect Azure here. So here I did do Azure stuff in different locations. So I have been doing stuff in Ireland and in the Netherlands and in Norway and in the US. So here we get to see that kind of information that we may want to go and dive into. Active users, activity charts are shown, info about Azure. I have been using this, the activity log itself. It shows what has been done within Azure. So what are the identities, by who? This kind of info is interesting. And if there's any alerts, then there is any alerts, right? People signing in from weird locations, from Tor IP addresses, for example. So here we could go into the settings for cloud apps, and this is allowing us to have app connectors. You can also get connections from more Microsoft-related components, which happens by default. And also you can search for extra applications if you want to have those integrated as well. So it's so the list is getting longer and longer and longer here. If you want to add data into the system, then this is what you could be looking for. And then there's actually something else I could add into this, but obviously, let me see if I can. I used to be able to do this from another portal, which is portal.cloudappsecurity.com. I'm not sure if this portal still exists, so let's just check it out. It seems so. So this is actually the old Cloud App Security portal, but if you go into the settings here, then you can go into also log collectors. And those log collectors, they allow you to add data sources, like, for example, third-party firewall appliances. Like, hey, if you are running some kind of a firewall appliance here for your on-prem or for your office network, then here we can go in and check out the different firewall appliances that we can add into this in order to get some data. And then, of course, if you have a solution like this, you can then go in and, for example, go in and say, okay, how are we going to get the data in? That data, because of these connections, are going to be pushed into the data sets here. Now, apparently, somewhere here we should also be able to set up log collectors, but I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure where that is in this setting. So maybe I am just overlooking things, but not super important for now. So with this, we have another way to get even more information into the Microsoft Secure Score. That is, so with this, we have looked into some of the Defender-based solutions that make sense in order to get the level of security that you may want. Now, obviously, the best way to just approach your secure score is by going into the recommended actions. Sort on source a score impact and start working, right? That is what you need to do. Hey, you need to update. This is the biggest score I could get. The Microsoft Defender for Endpoint core components. So apparently, I have one exposed device that needs to be updated. It's actually a domain controller that I'm running. So maybe I want to go and get this fixed, right? So what do we need to do? We need to go in my vulnerability management recommendations, and maybe I should go in and check out what I need to do for my machine here. Apparently, one of my machines is running an older version of the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint agent. So one of the things that we need to do is open up the server and get it updated for example, Windows Server. We can go in, we can download an installation package and get the latest edition. And then when this is done, we'll just have to we can go in and say, okay, we fixed this. right? Because that is what so we have fixed this. So in this case, we could maybe in the management part, right? We can go and tell, hey, we fixed it, but just wait for 24 hours, and you will notice that the that message will then be gone. Then the next step we're going to take, use advanced protection against ransomware. Here we have to set up a certain policy. What computer is going to benefit from this? So yeah, I guess 5 exposed devices is a good reason to get it fixed. And here we see, okay, go to this location, implement that policy in Intune, for example, then take the next one and the next one and the next one, just like that. Obviously, this is going to take some time. Now, if I'm informed well, all of you are working at a Microsoft partner, which means that you'll be working at a solution provider. Now, one of the jobs that you may have is that you are going to be responsible for implementing security for your customers. Now, one of the ways to get things life easy here is you may want to go and open up Microsoft Lighthouse. So if you go to lighthouse.microsoft.com, this will give you as a partner access to the Microsoft 365 Lighthouse environment. And well, here we have also in a sort of a one-stop overview, and we can see how our environments have been protected. For example, if you have been implementing Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, you will notice all kinds of information about the devices and their security, the devices and their compliance, threat management levels at customers, Windows 365 if implemented at customers, data protection policy and data from here. This allows us to monitor and manage our customers' networks and environments with, let's say, policies that you can apply once and then have them implement to many of your customers' tenants in one go. Be careful with this because you really want to do some testing before you implement something for more than one customer in the same time at one go. However, and that is the benefit here, for when it comes to monitoring, you immediately get to see which of my tenants, which of my customers need some special attention at this point. Well, that, my dear friends, is pretty much everything that I wanted to share with you when it comes to managing or improving your secure score. Hopefully you have found this a useful session. If you did, then at least thank you for joining anyway. If you want to stay in touch for one reason or another, the best way to stay in touch with me is connect to my moab.ms website. If you want to get more information about me, hit that alexdejong.com page here. You'll find some information about me. If you want, connect to me on LinkedIn, which is my premium, my favorite way of communicating with students. I'm not very active on Twitter, but I am active on YouTube. So if you're interested, then hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, in order to be